Welcome back to our building block series. I'm Cindy Cloward, and today's block is the Checkerboard Star. It's a really fun block to make, and it's block number 8 in our sampler quilt. So these are the supplies needed to get you started. The first thing you need to do is grab your large white quilt block. Again, we're building on skills we've learned before, so this shouldn't be too unfamiliar to you. We're going to mark our storm solid or confetti cotton solid fabric corner to corner with our marking tool, just using a mechanical pencil. I previously marked my other blocks, and we're going to put them on opposite corners of our white block, lining up that center marking. Again, I like to press it. Kind of creates a little adhesion to the bottom block as you put them together. Press up top. Okay, and you can always throw a pin in there if you want to. So I'm going to take it to the machine. I'm going to sew down one side and back the other with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, using this as my center guide. All right, we've sewn on each side of our center marking. Now we can take our ruler, line it up on that center marking, and that is our cut line. Take your 2 units over to your pressing station. You're gonna flip up these triangle pieces, kind of make that heart shape. Let those cool down just for a second. This is what they look like. So you can grab your other squares that look just like that and line them up in the center of those 2 triangles. And I'm going to give them a quick press on top. Throw a pin in there. Again, that center line is our guide, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch on each side of our marking, that center line. All right, let's take it back. Again, it can be a little tricky to chain piece when you've got the point down the center, but you can sew them one at a time. And again, we're just making our flying geese 4 at a time. These little units. So that center mark is our cut line. Take it back to our pressing station. Well, sometimes you can press 2 at a time. And now you can open it up. And you've got your flying geese unit, just like that. While those are just cooling off, I'm gonna grab my large rotating mat. Now these units are a little bit bigger. They are 6.5 inches in width, so I'm gonna get my square up ruler that's 6.5 inches. And I'm gonna trim up my flying geese. Now again, a reminder, we want a 1/4 inch from the tip to the edge of our fabric, our raw edge of the fabric. So we don't want to ever cut into that because we want to see our points when we're quilting. So you line that up, and that aqua section is the seam section. So you kind of trim it up. I'm gonna scoop. Get those little dog ears, and your unit is ready to go. Okay, we're gonna set those aside till we're ready for them. Clean up our little scraps. This is the only amount of waste you have on making those flying geese. Isn't that great? Okay, now we get out our long strips of fabric. And we're gonna sew the light and dark blues together. Again, you want an accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance, and maybe even go in a scant 1/4 inch seam. So just inside a 1/4 inch seam. Okay, we've got those sewn together. Let's give them a quick press. All right, since we're making a checkerboard, we are going to sew every other one. So our dark ones right next to the light, right sides together. Again, we're just gonna strip piece this section together. Take it over here and press. Press to the dark side. See how my seam is pressing over to that side. Okay, so now you've got your strips, and we're going to, let's see, well, we need to square up that side. Make sure you line the line up on your top edge. Just trim that off like that. Now we're going to cut 2-inch strips. Should just have a tiny bit extra. Now this is how we're going to create our checkerboard. We'll sew that section over. And because you've pressed to the dark side, when you flip them every other one, the seams are all ready to nest, just to nestle in to one another. But I like to pin all of my seams to make sure they line up. I'm going to do it the same with this one. Okay, let's go sew. All right, clip through our threads. Take a look. All your corners are lined up just right. That looks great. I think I'll do a quick press. Okay, now just line these up. Got one last seam for our checkerboard. All right, let's take a look. Everything looks good. Let's give it a press. How do you like that? Now let's square it up, make sure it's good to go. I don't think I have to trim. Looks like I need to just pull that a little bit. If it's slightly smaller, take it to your machine or to your pressing station and just give it a little tug. If it's a lot smaller, you need to check your seam allowance. But if you just need a little wiggle room, it's good to go. I think I'm just gonna slightly trim there. Yeah, it looks good. Let me see, line that up. It should be pretty accurate if you've got a good 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now it's time to assemble our block. So you got your checkerboard in the center, and you're gonna put your flying geese on all 4 sides. The white part, we've got white flying geese this time. That's what creates the star. So we've got our star, then we get our small white squares. And there we go. And just like we've done before, we're gonna sew. Usually I would flip the inside to the outside, but since our outside's so skinny and we've got a 6.5 inch center, I'm gonna flip towards the center. Let's look at our point. So I'm gonna press it in just a minute, but look how that end of the point lines up with that center line. It can be a little tricky at first to line that up, but remember, just line that point with that seam. It looks good. So we are going to do that again. Line that up. So the first thing we do is line that point up with the center seam there, and we're going to pin it. And then pin our other 2 sides. I have that section done. Now I need to add these 2 sections. One thing I'm going to do, and a little bit of adjustment, is I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to open some seams to make it easier because I have so much bulk with this checkerboard. So you can already see I've opened up the seam on this side. I've kind of finger pressed it. I'm going to open it up on this side, finger pressing it, and I'm also going to open the center seam. It will be a little bit easier to line up my points when I open up this seam. So I'm just going to give a quick press. And I'm going to open up these seams. Most of the time, I do not open up my seams. I press to one side. But sometimes when you have a lot of bulk when you're quilting, it is better to open up the seams than press to the one side or to the dark side. Again, I'm opening up that center seam. Got lots of threads. I haven't trimmed up yet. Okay, I think that is good. So again, we want to line up those points on that center section. When I've opened up that seam a little bit, I can line that right to the point. That's where I'm going to put a pin in. And I'm not nestling these seams this time. I'm opening up my seams. And I'm just going to line that up right together. Okay, let's sew our two sides on. All right, let's take a look. Looks very nice. Let's take it to our pressing station. Do a final press. All right, let's get our square up ruler. Square up our block. It looks pretty good. Congratulations, your checkerboard star is finished. Join us next time for the rail fence block, our last block.